All right, let's go ahead and bring up our very next speaker. First, I'm going to take a couple of fries here and enjoy my McDonald's fries. And that should be a hint to you. Yes, we are about to hear from the MIG data scientist, Enrique Olivo, MIG data scientist at McDonald's Canada. And his talk today is, would you like fries with that? He's going to talk to us about recommendation algorithms in the restaurant industry. So Enrique, he's a driven problem solver. He's got a strong background in data analysis and a passion for food. He specializes in recommendation algorithms, also currently serving as a teaching assistant for UT Austin McComb School of Business online program in data science and business analytics. All right, Enrique, cheers. I'm going to be eating some fries while you talk, and I love how it matches the color of your shirt. This is great.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. So thanks so much for the intro, Kate. I wish you kept that picture up because this isn't the most flattering image of me, I got to say. Haircuts are illegal where I am right now. And my friends say I have a face for radio, not for live streaming. So apologies for what you see on your screen, but don't worry. We're going to put up some PowerPoint slides so you can look at the Photoshop version of me instead of this current version of me. So if we could switch that just to get the small Enrique and then big PowerPoint version. Thank you so much, Kate. Technology is fascinating. So hello, everyone. My parents are actually watching this right now about a couple of rooms over. So hello to them. Hello to you and all my friends and colleagues who might be hopping in to make sure I don't share any confidential information. Don't worry, I won't. So let me just jump right into it. We only got 10 minutes here. As the title of my talk suggests, would you like fries with that? The bulk of my work is in recommendation systems. Basically figuring out ways to get you to buy more items and to buy more expensive items. And to properly understand the nature of this work I do, I believe the best starting point is to actually unpack that exact title a little bit more. Specifically by asking, do we even need data scientists or algorithms to understand the value there is in asking customers, would you like fries with that? You know, surely it's established knowledge by intuition and by experience that there is value in asking customers that. And to be honest, the answer is yeah, you don't really need someone like me and a statistics degree to tell you that. Come up with any customer-facing company, in fact, in any industry, online or in person, and I think every single one has some kind of recommendation system in place, like McDonald's, would you like fries with that? And many of them are so straightforward that they don't need a data scientist to implement them. And you know what? Let me just trust my computer monitor a little bit. If you see me glancing down at some paper, I did write out my script here, so please pardon that for a little bit. And I forgot to actually jump into this, saying that I want to share these 3 questions as I go on. We might go a little bit out of order, but I want to just jump right into the kind of work I do with recommendation algorithms to get into time. And as we go through it, I'll talk about how we got into data science and advice for any students or current professionals interested in a career in data. So anyways, to jump back into the flow of things, any customer-facing company that you've encountered probably has some kind of recommendation system in place. And McDonald's is the example I started with, but if you go to anywhere outside to buy groceries, you'll notice that after you finish your run of shopping for your vegetables, maybe some clothes, electronics, there are magazines and chocolates at the front counter there waiting for you, prodding you, nudging you to see if you'd like some more. If you go and buy a movie ticket, how about some popcorn? Or for $5 extra, we can upgrade you to the 3D version of the movie that you're watching. And online or in person, if you buy a book, you might be recommended books in the same genre or books by the same author. And the examples are pretty much endless of how companies are constantly trying to nudge you to buy more items or more expensive items. And the point I'm trying to make by giving you all these examples is that companies already understand and are actively believing in the power of recommendations. And because of that, there's ample opportunity in today's world for the kind of innovation that data and its associated technologies can provide. So in other words, there's a big chance at making a lot of money for these companies by making their recommendations a little smarter. And if you play your cards right, they'll direct some of that money to you to help make that happen. And in my case, it was to help expand on that idea and practice of asking customers, would you like fries with that? The interesting part is probably asking, how am I helping them do that? And essentially, it's by building up a system of what we call collaborative filtering or content-based filtering or user-based filtering, whatever, all kinds of filtering, which basically just seeks to understand the trend of products that are bought together, as well as the trend of which items customers with similar characteristics have bought in the past. And if you look at this graphic long enough, or if you just think about it long enough, you'll realize that the core assumption of this kind of analysis, or algorithmic logic, if you want to sound fancy, is that customers will likely order along the lines of trends. So naturally, when you go through the process of running through the calculations of what items are bought together and what items are ordered by people who have similar profiles as you, for the most part, you will not be surprised. Muffins are ordered with coffee, and burgers are ordered with fries. And most of the time, this is okay. Generally speaking, people don't want surprises when they order things, especially with food. They want to be gently nudged with their recommendations instead of being shoved, so to speak. And there is still opportunity in that to use data science to provide a more robust and personalized nudging experience, if you will, that goes beyond a blanket suggestion of, would you like some of McDonald's world famous fries? For instance, most people know that muffins go with the coffee, but what type of muffin? Blueberry, fruit and fiber? Data scientists like me can help companies figure out how to do that, answer that question with code that's automated and, of course, scalable. But as much as it works to take advantage of known trends, present and known trends, the data models I work with and other recommendation specialists work with nonetheless need to go against the trend every once in a while. And the terms most associated with what I'm trying to describe are, they come from the field of reinforcement learning, and they are explore versus exploit, which for reasons I hope are clear, I'm not really comfortable with, especially that second term right there. It's a little hard to see here, but I'll just read it out loud. The basic idea of exploration and exploitation, or discovery, is that to obtain a lot of reward, an agent must prefer actions that it has tried in the past and found to be effective in producing reward. In this case, money, average check. But to discover such actions, an agent must try actions it has not selected before. And in the context of McDonald's, the value in exploration or discovery is to see if maybe people would like being recommended products you won't expect. For instance, instead of a muffin with a coffee, how about a muffin with water? Instead of burger with fries, how about burgers with an ice cream cone? These sound unintuitive and that they would never work and probably taste bad. But everyone from the franchisee to my boss and my next door neighbor would probably agree with you and say, this is freaking stupid. Why would you recommend water and ice cream to those products? But like any good scientist, not even a data scientist, any good scientist would implore them to consider, you never know until you try. It could very well be that a customer was going to buy a coffee with their muffin anyways. So why not show them something new? It could be that although they would never buy ice cream with their burger, maybe seeing their recommendation would prompt them to think about picking one up for their kid on the way home. With data science, the main idea base I'm trying to communicate is you have to try new things, even if it might seem like you're messing around. And honestly, that's okay. Because to quote someone from my childhood on the show Mythbusters, the only difference between science and messing around is writing stuff down. And I really do believe that. And in my case, you'll be writing down a lot of stuff, mostly in code, and some of it, unfortunately, in mathematical notation. Because don't get me wrong. Although I use cute clip art and a lot of generalizations when it comes to how recommendation systems function, there's a lot of hard, humbling, and at times annoying work that has to be done. For instance, data cleaning is most of my job. So is making sure I'm on good terms with the data engineers and architects who help make sure I have data to work with in the first place. I also have to read a lot of documentation for statistical packages like A rules, there on the bottom right in R, that can help me calculate the extent to which a product is associated with other products. I also have to regularly brush up on statistical theory to properly understand some of the latest developments in the field, which are usually buried deep inside some academic paper. And to be honest, that I feel like is something that is sometimes overlooked in instances where data science is conveyed. But in the short amount of time, I really wanted to make sure I gave you that overview of how recommendation algorithms work in a nutshell, specifically that whole process of exploration versus discovery, and how that really is key. It might be unintuitive to some, but nonetheless speak, I think, to the innovation that data science has to carry forward in any industry. So I know we are a little bit jostled in terms of the original schedule, but Kate, feel free to jump in here. I can definitely go back to the points I wanted to mention first. How did I get into data science? A little about me, as well as some advice for any students or current professionals interested in a data career. So I want to be sensitive to time though, but I'm just going to put that up there.
Hey, Enrique, I love your presentation. We are actually very flexible with time, given that you are the final speaker. So we can hang out here for the next 45 minutes if you chose to, because at that point, LinkedIn will cut us off. Then we'll be at the 4-hour mark. But we definitely have plenty of questions and comments that came in. So if you want to do, walk through a couple of your points that you missed in the beginning, we can do that. And then I'll jump back in to do the questions with you.
Yeah, that'd be perfect, Kate. Thank you so much. So maybe not 45 minutes, but 4 to 5 minutes I can definitely do. Sorry, that was a bad joke. So for what it's worth, I'll just go through numbers 1 and number 3 here. Hopefully that gives some of the folks who signed in what they were looking for. So a little bit about me specifically. How did I get into data science? I didn't want to get into data science at first, to be honest. I didn't want to get into anything even remotely close to mathematics. Mostly because it felt like, and I hope my parents aren't watching, it felt like something I had to do, something I was almost forced to do. I think if I go back to my high school memories, they wanted me to be an accountant or a doctor, and that required a lot of math. But personally, I was more interested in writing, and the exact medium of writing and reading was political science, or the specific academic discipline that drew me in. It just captured my interest in a way that no other field really did. Questioning things like how power in a society is allocated and exercised, what role institutions play in equality in our society, reducing crime, protecting the environment, and so on. And so when I went to university, that's exactly what I studied. I decided to study political science. And my program was a little bit different in that it was a dual degree program where I spent first 2 years at Sciences Po over in France, and then the next 2 years at Columbia University in the city of New York, the logo there at the top right. And when I started that study, I intended to do political science pretty much throughout both degrees, all 4 years. But I realized that many of the questions that fascinated me, that I just mentioned, had something missing about them. And that something was, perhaps unsurprisingly, data. I realized that I needed data to best understand questions in politics, economic and demographic data, just to name a few. So when it came time for me to decide my major, I settled on a combined degree of political science and statistics. When graduation time came around and it was time to seek some gainful employment for the first time, I thought the analytics space would be a great fit because it combined those two aspects of quantitative analysis, as well as an interest in analyzing and writing about, in the end, people. What about people specifically? Well, I love food, and that brought me to company that spends a lot on ads, so maybe you've seen a couple of them. HelloFresh, a local meal kit company here in their Canadian office. And then with time, I ended up taking that love for data and analytics over to McDonald's. And the reason I bring up the story, I bring up education, I bring up these companies is, one, just to tell my story, but secondly, just to show, I guess, yet another one of the many unconventional paths towards doing something in analytics. Of course, I was definitely still grounded in formal study of statistics. But in terms of where my initial intentions lay, as well as type of companies I work with, it really was a little unique, which I think is a little bit of everyone's story, but something I wanted to mention nonetheless. And real quick, that was just about 4 minutes. I got 1 more minute left, is some advice for any students or current professionals interested in a data career. Very broad question, very hard to unpack, and everyone's case is different, like my own case, I hope demonstrated. But I'll say 3 things like a good consultant, just like my outline here is numbered. Number 1, learn SQL. Number 2, do not neglect Microsoft Excel. I promise you, you could be a data scientist with just those 2 things. Anyone who pretends otherwise is kidding themselves. Number 3, treat exploring a data career like ordering a pizza. And I have to end on a silly food analogy. You got to know what you like if you want the most out of it. Any pizza is good, but if you don't know what kind of toppings work best, with your taste buds, you're not going to have the best time. Similarly, if you could be the best coder in SQL, Python, you could do pivot tables till the sun goes down. But if you don't have at least a sincere interest in the kind of work you do or the space it operates in, then I don't think, for one, you'll stand out in any scenario, and two, that you won't enjoy yourself. And honestly, data scientists have the potential to make a lot of money, but if you're not having fun with half of the time you're awake during the day, I think you're in the wrong business anyways. So a little bit of a grim note to end on. I'm going to go back to that pizza analogy and just say you got to know what you like if you want the most out of it. So there you go. Happy to go into any of those many things I just mentioned. But
Enrique, I love it. Learn SQL, don't neglect Excel, and treat it like pizza. Absolutely. I love this. And I do want to take a couple of questions. Hopefully you've got time. And for those in the live audience, definitely stick around. We are doing another giveaway after the talk. So I'm going to go ahead and take the very first question here from Martin. And he's asking, one of the big problems with recommender systems at the register is that the person at the register may just not, ask or use the information given. Do you run fraud detection algorithms in this direction?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I properly understand it as well. And I don't know if fraud is the term that comes to mind, but basically there are people who don't take the recommendations. I think the smarter people would call that endogenous variation. That's just part of the data that you're capturing. Some folks just aren't going to take your data or recommendations. And that's something that primarily affects sample size and considerations for how long you run an experiment and so on. But that filters into one of our main metrics, which is if people aren't taking your recommendation, maybe you got to try something else. So that's definitely its own area within the vast field of recommendation systems. But that's the short version of it, yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, question here from Scott Taylor. He says every time he orders at McDonald's, they try to upsell him on other items, but why does he still have to ask for ketchup?
That's a very good question. And you know what? You let me know where you are, and I'll speak directly to the restaurant owners in your location. We want to make sure customers get a restaurant experience they can expect, and that includes having delicious ketchup. Honestly, it does depend. McDonald's in most of the large Western markets are operated by individual franchisees, and I think sometimes they have different practices of how they handle things like condiments standing out. But I think for the most part, folks will either have them on the side or they'll just stick them in the bag. And unfortunately, sometimes folks forget. But again, let me know where you are, and I can solve this problem for you.
Scott, send your address. Enrique will make sure you get some ketchup delivered. So awesome. Question here from Helene. She's saying, do you combine customer segmentation with recommenders?
Absolutely. And so this is something about the restaurant industry on a whole as well, that a lot of those discussions about customer segmentation tie into larger loyalty programs that, think your Amazon Primes, our legacy companies are trying to implement. And so basically any piece of data that we can identify about a customer, more than just the location you usually order at, ties into that idea of customer segmentation. And interesting thing is, you can either do that by those customer-centric piece of data, or even you can still try to infer them from the type of products they have. For instance, if you have a Happy Meal, you're probably a different customer segmentation than someone who buys a regular Big Mac combo. So lots of neat ways to try to create customer segmentation, but a really interesting thing is it's tying into larger questions about how do we build loyalty programs to get more data, but also get that new kind of relationship with the customer. Yeah,
absolutely. And we're going to shift gears a little bit here and go into your more of your data science background and advice. Question here about burnouts for data scientists. How do you personally avoid burning out?
That's honestly a really great question. I'll reiterate something I've already said and then say something new. One is, I think a lot of the burnout ties into the fact that a lot of folks going into this haven't spent as much time really questioning themselves on whether this is something they want to do. I mentioned how when I was younger, a lot of the expectation was, be an accountant, be a doctor. Those positions are great. They contribute to society. But if you don't feel connected to what you're doing, that will lead to burnout more than if you do like it. Of course, burnout can still happen if you do enjoy what you like. And the answer that I personally like to say is you got to have a support system in place, especially in the type of folks who frequent these kind of conferences. Like one thing I notice is there's sometimes a bit of a grind. You have to have a public facing profile. You really have to, put in hours outside of your day job. And that can be a tough task, as useful as those things can be. And just stepping away from the computer, having something outside of work, whether it's family, friends, a recreational soccer league, who knows, video games with your pals, you need some kind of support system to avoid burnout in any situation, in any industry, I think. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great advice, Enrique. Thank you so much. I think we'll stop taking questions. I'll let you go. I know we've kind of asked more than you probably expected. So I appreciate your patience with all the questions I fired at you. Really great presentation again, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. And yes, I am Filipino, Grace. So yeah, if you haven't figured that out, that's why I have a Spanish name, but look kind of Chinese. So sorry.
There you go. Okay.
Put that in there. So feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Kate. Hope you enjoyed the giveaway, guys. Lots of goodies, I'm sure. And I'll see you later.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Enrique.